urgent assault on Crimea has begun. The armed forces of Ukraine are breaking through onto the peninsula. Russian air defense has been wiped out. The underwater monster Morichka is heading for the Crimean bridge. This is a tremendous breakthrough. Our forces have launched a large-scale operation. The Crimean bridge is shaking. The peninsula has been left without air defense. The much-vaunted S-400s and Pantsers are burning out. Ukrainian ballistic missiles are opening the gates to hell. All this and more coming up. Watch until the end. Ukraine greets you today. Rinat Aslanov here with the latest events. Urgently, the armed forces of Ukraine have begun the liberation of Crimea. Special operations forces are storming the occupied peninsula, turning enemy equipment into heaps of charred scrap metal. The armed forces of Ukraine are tearing the Putin army's defenses to shreds. This is a truly hellish raid. Crimea is trembling from the might of Ukrainian retribution. Total annihilation. The pride of the Russian military-industrial complex has been ground to dust. The General Staff of the Special Operations Forces confirms this. A devastating strike was delivered, blinding and disarming the occupiers. These exclusive shots of the strikes prove that there are no safe places left for the Russians. With a sensational hunt, specialists from the legendary Middle Strike Unit precisely scorched the enemy's lair. The total collapse of Russian air defense has been confirmed. The much-vaunted S-400 launchers, a radar station, and auxiliary S-400 components have been destroyed. The sky over Crimea is now completely open to our strikes. The final chord was the famous Panzer S-1, which was supposed to save the air defense from our drones, but instead became easy prey and simply ceased to exist. The occupiers' defenses collapsed like a house of cards.
Special Operations Forces continue to carry out asymmetric actions aimed at reducing Russia's offensive potential.
And it seems that the Russians on the peninsula are already sensing the danger. There is turmoil and chaos in the Russian army. The Navy is no exception. In Sevastopol, the Russian Black Sea Fleet is shamefully hiding their damaged ships under camouflage nets. A large landing ship of Project 775 and the BDK Topia are moored in the bay. The superstructures are covered as if wounds under bandages. A Molnia-class missile boat is patrolling the bay. Part of the superstructure is missing, the launchers have disappeared, and almost everything from bow to stern is covered with nets. The Kremlin is trying to pass off damaged vessels as combat-ready, but our eyes catch every crack. Moreover, agents of the Atesh movement among Crimeans are recording a sharp drop in flight activity at the Saki military airfield in Novofedorivka. After a series of precise strikes by the Ukrainian Defense Forces, the occupiers are frantically hiding equipment in fortified hangars and relocating it to other sites. The airfield, which is home to the 43rd Separate Naval Assault Aviation Regiment of the Russian Armed Forces, is still operational, but it is functioning at its limit and under serious restrictions. The skies over Crimea no longer belong to the occupiers, and there's also a death sentence. For the Crimean bridge, the underwater monster Morichka has been unveiled, which will send Putin's pride to the bottom. Ukrainian engineers have officially unveiled a weapon of retribution that has caused hysteria among the occupiers in Sevastopol. Testing is complete and the specifications are shocking. This silent predator is capable of covering 1,000 kilometers with a colossal payload weighing over a ton. The device's maximum speed is about 10 kilometers per hour. Thanks to inertial navigation, Morichka heads toward its target in complete radio silence. It cannot be seen by radar, cannot be heard by sonar, and is undetectable by any electronic warfare system. Morichka possesses a unique capability. It can freeze at any point and remain in standby mode for days or even weeks. At the right moment, the drone wakes up on command and delivers a fatal strike. The explosive power is adjusted according to the target. Bridges, military ports, and the largest vessels of the occupiers are now in the zone of deadly risk. The developers have confirmed that all systems are working perfectly. Morichka is fully ready for real combat deployment. Time is now counted in minutes.
It will reach the Crimean bridge very quietly and unnoticed. It can stop at a specific point. It can remain undetected for some time, and then at any moment move on to strike its target. The payload is about 1,000 kilograms. A lot of interesting things can be selected for it. This is a kamikaze designed to destroy very large targets. Port infrastructure, bridges, large ships. We work with the military to understand which targets need to be hit, and we modify it for those specific targets.
The occupiers' knees start to shake at the mere thought of a strike on the Crimean bridge. Recently, powerful explosions thundered in Sevastopol, which is occupied by the Russians. The Russians shut the Crimean bridge for over 7 hours. Crimean officials declared an air raid alert only after the explosions. Sources suggest this was a Ukrainian strike on Russian air defenses. Our forces broke through in Crimea. The Ukrainian military began reclaiming Crimea and Sevastopol. The area is an apocalypse. The Crimean bridge is now closed. The occupiers have never seen such a hellish night before. All the details of the hellish roasting of the Russians on the peninsula. Watch the report.
Crimea is rumbling again. Explosions at military sites, drones over the peninsula, and Russian air defenses hit. Ukraine is reducing Russia's ability to use Crimea as a military staging ground. But what is this? Are these just strikes, or is it the beginning of the return of the peninsula? On the night of February 17th, the governor of Sevastopol announced one of the longest attacks on the peninsula. That same night, the Crimean bridge was closed, with hundreds of cars stuck in traffic jams and trains delayed.
There hadn't been any random attacks on Crimea since the 22nd. All the operations were planned and carefully thought out. And now, when strikes are carried out on targets in Crimea, we view them more in this context. In the context as part of the first line of defense for potential targets that are to be hit?
In the Caucasus.
Right in the heart of Russian military infrastructure, an Iskander missile depot in Pasechnoye was destroyed by Ukrainian Special Operations Forces.
There are these stationary targets. They are under constant and rigorous surveillance, and they are the ones that get hit the most often. And then there are other types of targets that are constantly mobile and only temporary in nature. In order to accurately calculate and carefully plan these complex operations, the very first thing that we must consider is
a flash, then a column of smoke. Over the past week, the Ghost struck an anti-aircraft missile and gun system, the Pantsir S-1, the Nebo-U radar system, and the BK-16 landing craft. Now all of that is just scrap metal, what's left of such valuable Russian equipment.
The comprehensive system designed for monitoring both surface and air situations serves as a fundamental and key element of situational awareness across the sea and in the air. Because these systems provide critical data for defense, radar stations are consistently prioritized as the primary targets during any tactical engagement or strategic military operation. First are the radar stations, and second come after them. Air defense systems, and then comes the breakthrough of the defenses. But
now, even the most protected airfields in Crimea are no obstacle for the Ukrainian Armed Forces. This time, on January 20th, the airfield in Jankoy came under attack, more specifically its control tower building. But that's not all, because earlier, equipment worth hundreds of millions of dollars was destroyed at the airfield in Sevastopol. In particular, a Russian transport aircraft, which was simply standing there waiting until a Ukrainian drone arrived. Crimea is a key military base and logistics center for Russian forces, and it is from there that attacks on Ukraine are most often carried out.
Aviation is important for both sides. First, aviation serves as an element of air defense. This is the first echelon of the enemy's air defense. Secondly, and perhaps most importantly, we must recognize that first and foremost, these are the Russian aggressors who are systematically destroying our peaceful cities and infrastructure. They are responsible for this devastation, and now they are finally beginning to get exactly what they deserve for their actions.
Under air defense strikes are radars, airfields, military bases, and naval equipment. This is no longer a one-time action, but a systematic weakening of the Russian military infrastructure on the peninsula.
As long as the forces of the Russian occupation continue to launch attacks against our sovereign nation of Ukraine from our occupied Crimea, it is only natural and expected that they will receive a firm and decisive response in return.
Another question is why Russia, for some reason, is not actively protecting even its most important equipment and military facilities. Could it be that their so-called unparalleled air defense can't cope?
They're removing them from Kamchatka, from Sakhalin, from primary systems that were on combat duty, and dragging them to our Crimea. They deploy them. While they were hauling them over, our defense forces struck. Now they've brought them in, set them up, and we're preparing for the next strike. So, first we need to destroy the new Arctic Gorkas to ensure the strike is successful.
Crimea remains Russia's key staging ground for strikes against Ukraine. And the more actively it is used, the more often it becomes a target. And now the question is not just whether there will be new attacks, but how long Crimea can remain Russia's main military hub.
Ukraine started Operation Revenge for Kyiv. Moscow is under massive attack. Drones are hitting the Russian capital as Tatarstan is on fire. Our drones destroyed a key station. The Kremlin is in shock. Where will the next explosion thunder? Watch for the details.
Bright explosions in Tatarstan. Guest in the Russian capital. And an endless blackout in Belgorod. It seems the special military operation really is going according to plan. I wonder, is this what Putin wanted?
A thief should be in prison, but there are nuances.
Explosions where they were least expected, 1,200 kilometers from the border with Ukraine. Tatarstan, one of Russia's key oil-producing regions, has come under drone attack. We're talking about the Kalaikin oil pumping station, one of the main hubs in Russia's pipeline system.
This is one of the key oil pumping stations on the territory of the Russian Federation, which carries out accordingly. It pumps and sorts petroleum products for further transportation through the Druzhba pipeline. In other words, it is a key component of the Druzhba pipeline.
Belgorod also has its own atmosphere, and apparently the locals don't quite like it.
It's simply dark in the city.
Moscow is the city where important decisions are made. A city that for years was assured to be out of reach. And now drones are appearing more and more often in the sky above the capital.
Moscow is paralyzed. The sky is closed. 100 Ukrainian Armed Forces drones have turned the capital of Mordor into a zone of panic.
And while UAVs are fully imposing order in Russia, Ukraine continues to receive support from its allies. However, it is only in 2026 that Germany plans to deliver the IRIS-T air defense missile system and the Skyranger 35 air defense system.
We can say that Germany is a key military technical partner of the defense forces of Ukraine. It is also worth noting the deliveries of air defense missile systems from Norway. These are air defense missile systems. The NASAMS air defense system, which is widely considered to be one of the most advanced in the world.
But Ukraine is not only receiving weapons from its allies, it is also expanding cooperation in weapons production. Recently, France announced an expansion of its partnership with Ukraine in the field of drone usage.
I also came to Kyiv to try to work with the Ministry of Defense in very innovative areas, such as drones. I think we will come back to this issue. It is really necessary to build a full-fledged strategic partnership on drones in a very short time. This year,
Ukraine will receive about 10,000 strike drones. All of this is the product of joint Ukrainian-German production. And by the end of the year, it is planned to open another 10 similar joint ventures.
We are already buying everything we possibly can when it comes to drones. We are already training our soldiers and will continue to improve our efforts every day to be better when it comes to drones, because this is part of the future, part of the warfare of the future, and in fact, it is already the reality.
Ukraine is rapidly ramping up its own production of weapons and drones. One of the most notable achievements is the development of Ukraine's own cruise missiles, the Flamingo. But Kyiv is not standing still and is already opening up opportunities to export its own military products. Of course, the primary focus is on meeting the needs of the armed forces of Ukraine. The main areas of such cooperation are the Baltic countries, Northern Europe, Germany, and the United Kingdom.
European countries and the United States are interested in expanding military technical cooperation with Ukraine. And this is quite remarkable. The expansion of the sales market concerns Ukrainian strike systems, primarily unmanned aerial vehicles.
No one knows how much longer the war will last. Only one thing is clear: Putin's Russia will never achieve its goals. The Ukrainian Armed Forces will definitely drive the uninvited guests from their homeland.
The Kremlin is in a panic. Ukrainian ballistic missiles are opening the gates to hell. Putin trembles at the very mention of its name. The world has never seen such a mega weapon before. Get ready to meet the new predator urgently. While Russian propaganda feeds the people fairy tales, the armed forces have gotten their hands on a weapon of death. Fireworks on Red Square. The Sapsan begins its hunt. Our legendary Ukrainian defense industry has played its trump card. Watch for the details.
Putin wants the war to continue, so the strikes on Russia go on. Russia keeps burning, all because Ukraine knows how to respond to aggression. Moreover, it continues to develop the very things it uses for counterstrikes. As it has become known, Ukraine, together with Germany, has developed a new drone from Quantum System. This is the Arad target drone, which was already demonstrated during the visit of the Ukrainian delegation to the first Ukrainian-German joint production facility.
A target drone is often used to test the capabilities of air defense systems, whether new ones that are emerging or to confirm the specifications of existing ones. They are used to conduct exercises and to train new personnel for air defense systems. Again, beginners who are just starting to add an anti-aircraft self-propelled system, or even an anti-aircraft missile system, or an anti-aircraft missile and gun system, RPK. For some reason, they have to strike at something, and for some reason, it has to be moving.
The tactical and technical specifications are still being kept secret, but it is known that the drone will be launched from a catapult, and it is equipped with a jet engine that can reach speeds of up to 450 kilometers per hour. And according to experts, it is also likely to carry a combat payload, which already changes the drone's intended purpose.
First and foremost, this is a target drone. However, we have witnessed numerous documented instances and clear examples where specialized aerial target drones were also equipped with sophisticated lethal combat payloads and could be deployed directly on the battlefield as effective offensive strike elements in their own right. Therefore, I do not rule out that the versatile RAD drone, is designed for many multifunctional applications. Not only as a target, for example, for domestic production in European countries, specifically Germany and so on. But it is also possible for this system to be utilized to equip it with a specialized combat payload and then deploy it in the field accordingly. For carrying out strikes at medium distances, that is, this drone is precisely for striking the enemy's medium rear zone or temporarily occupied territories or the territory of the Russian Federation. This could be 10 kilograms, 20, 30, 50, or even 100. Accordingly, any drone target as a result, in the near future, this platform could even potentially become a sophisticated strike drone.
Ukraine continues to develop its technologies and military-industrial complex. And as has already become known, as many as 10 factories for the production of Ukrainian drones will open in Europe this year. Therefore, we will increasingly see retaliatory strikes against Russia. But it's not just about drones. On January 11th, the British authorities announced their intention to create a powerful ballistic missile called Night Hole, specifically for Ukraine. The statement from the British government specifies that the new ballistic missile can carry a 200-kilogram warhead and has a range of 500 kilometers. And these are only the initial figures. As stated by the UK Minister for the Armed Forces, London is firmly committed to providing Ukrainians with more weapons.
A safe Europe needs a strong Ukraine. These brand new British long-range missiles will help Ukraine stay in the fight and will certainly make Putin worry more.
But the Night Hole is not the only missile being prepared for delivery to Ukraine. 6 European countries are developing another new cruise missile. Germany, France, Britain, Italy, Poland, and Sweden have signed an agreement to develop it. According to Western sources, this project is known as OWE 500+. The price for such a missile will be below market value. Moreover, the new systems are supposed to be intelligent enough to achieve Western objectives without manual control. Who exactly? Whether Ukraine or Russia has the advantage in drone missiles is still hard to say. But what is known is that the Kremlin clearly did not expect such resistance from the Ukrainians, even in the 4th year of the war.
Through our defensive actions, we are simply exhausting the Russian occupation forces at the tactical, operational, and operational tactical levels. Although as of today, even in principle, even as of 2025, the Russian Federation has not demonstrated any success at the operational tactical level at all. Even its offensive actions, despite the intensity of the summer offensive campaign, it ultimately did not show that the Russian troops were capable of successfully seizing and holding vast areas across various Ukrainian regions that would effectively secure their positions for the long term. A breakthrough of the Ukrainian defense, a collapse of the defense, some other advances deep into our defensive lines. No, nothing of the sort. They moved very slowly through forest belts, across fields, through villages that were practically reduced to ashes. Nothing on a global scale. And in principle, Ukraine now holds a dominant position as a country occupying defensive positions.
The exhaustion of the Russians is happening not only at the front, but also in the rear. After all, as we have already seen, strikes on Russia's vulnerable points continue unabated. Ukraine is maximizing both partner assistance and its own defense industry. Flamingo is already destroying the largest ammunition depots in the Russian rear. Ukrainian Flamingos strike training grounds like Kapustin Yar, where Russia launched Oreshnik, Watch the Flamingo Fly. Oil refineries, factories, and military units are burning. The Ukrainian Sapsan missile system with ballistic missiles has entered serial production and systematic use. And here is the range of the Sapsan. Moreover, according to some expert assessments, the Sapsan has an advantage in speed over the American ATACMS, and it can easily strike Moscow. Some sources claim that Ukraine is already using these missiles, but information about where and how remains classified. Let's not forget about the Storm Shadow and HIMARS, which according to Russian television are supposedly being destroyed in batches, but somehow not really. HIMARS still keep hitting the power plants. And the Russian panic is most visible on Russian TV, because even there, they've started talking about how strong the Ukrainians are.
If just for a moment we imagine that Ukraine keeps this up, after the conflict ends, the Kyiv regime remains in place. This army remains intact. Europe rearms this army and Ukraine is admitted into the European Union. Believe me, in 5 years it won't be Germany, France, Italy, Poland, or anyone else running the European Union. It will be Ukraine running things there. Moreover, it will do so fully aware that this is its own Ukrainian army. If it wishes, it could march across all of Europe. And no French, German, or any other army
will be able to stop it.
The demilitarization that Putin so desperately wanted to carry out in Ukraine has failed spectacularly. Now, strikes on Russian territory have become more frequent and more powerful, because Ukraine knows how to respond to aggression. And what do you think about the latest events? Share your opinion in the comments, like the video, and stay up to date with the main news. There's more to come.